So good afternoon. Yeah. It is always a pleasure to come to IFPRI and be a discussant of this time of an important book, Ghana's Economic and Agricultural Transformation, Past Performance and Future Prospects. I quickly accepted to be a discussant, not just because it's about Ghana, but because it has implication for other countries in Africa. And in my current job as Director of Sustainable Development at the World Bank, it covers agriculture, environment, social, urban, and water. So it's quite larger than agriculture, even though within the World Bank, they still see me as the agriculture director. So it allowed me in my current job to be able to go beyond Ghana. I'll make reference to Ghana, but I will want to back and forth talk about Africa in general. It is an important publication for Africa because today Africa is facing a deteriorating food security situation, which is very much linked to agriculture to a great extent. As you can see in the graph in front of you, the agricultural growth in Africa in general has been quite good one over the past, since 2000, we talk about 4.6% annually, and higher than any other region in the world in terms of agriculture. However, this remarkable achievement in agriculture has been curtailed by the diminishing growth in food production, which began in 2011 and has worsened over the years. The slowdown of food production has not only reduced the availability and accessibility of food to African population that is growing, but also it has become more and more volatile. So years of, you can see in the graph, the volatility is the graph in orange, while the trend growth is the one in green. And it is driven extremely by weather events. And I will talk about that a little bit later, which I thought could be, the book has not put enough emphasis on that, but could be another opportunity for a future publication or work or follow-up work. So today, about 20% of the African population is undernourished, making Africa the region with the highest prevalence of undernutrition, and this is quite serious. Now, the book provides a detailed overview of the pattern of agricultural growth at different levels, national, regional, village level, and the extent to which policy, technology, population growth, and urbanization explain the kind of structural changes that have occurred in the sector and the challenges of the sustainability of the pattern of growth. The recommendations offered in the book are not disputable. I mean, they are very clearly good ones. Targeted public investment in agriculture, addressing coordination and market and institutional failures, the need for effective public-private partnership. I think nobody can challenge that. But I think, given what's happening now, the agenda today in Ghana and Africa cannot ignore the climate change impact agenda. And that's where I think the book could have done a bit more research on that. And if it had not done that, I think there are opportunities for further looking into that particular topic. Just 2 weeks ago, as Raju mentioned, I was here in this conference room where key messages from the call for leadership on climate resilience by the Global Commission for Adaptation were discussed. And it's especially alarming that after a period of earlier improvement, the food security situation in Africa is deteriorating, driven primarily by climate change impact. Today, what is being said is that out of the 100 million people that could be pushed out of to poverty between now and 2050, 42 million will be coming from Africa, which is quite a big number. Between now and 2030, I stand to be corrected, 43 million people will be pushed below the poverty line, in Africa, which is just 10 years from now. So climate change is a serious threat to crop productivity in Africa. That's making a lot of people food insecure. In Ghana, let's talk about Ghana. It will add to the complexity of managing the agricultural sector growth that we just talked about. Two areas stand out. The first is the extreme precipitation. In the decade between 1986 to 1995, part of the country have had the most devastating rainfall events and a relatively high number of 24-hour maximum rainfall events. Second is the drought. The northern part, savanna zone, have been affected by frequent drought and flooding, both accompanied by high temperature and intense heat. This is not just happening in Ghana. It's across that particular zone in Africa. And this is why at the World Bank, we thought to galvanize action, and we launched what we call the Africa Food Security Leadership Dialogue on Climate Adaptation of African Agriculture, early August in Kigali under the auspices of President Kagame, where we had several organizations, the CGIAR centers, all of them represented, the African Union Commission, the FAO, IFPRI, African Development Bank, came together to try to sign a communique to try to see how we could actually address this issue. In fact, on next Wednesday, on Wednesday 17, we'll be having a meeting of the Minister of Finance of Africa to discuss this particular agenda. Now, having said that, let me talk about four things that we are proposing as remedies to transform the food system and also transform African agriculture. And a few of them are also overlapping what we just heard from the editors. The policy environment is a precondition for transition to climate-adapted food system. And that's linked to the public expenditure issue that we just heard about, and it's quite important. I was in our research, work that we did, we found that the expenditure on food for Ghana between 2001 and 2014 was 5.2%, but it is much higher than what Sashi presented here, which is 2.8%, even much lower than what we are projecting. It's lower than by other standards in Africa, okay, compared to countries like Ethiopia, 6%, Burkina Faso, 8%, Uganda, 5%, Kenya, 4%. It is extremely low in Ghana, and there's nothing you can do to transform an agriculture sector with such limited amount of resources going to an agriculture sector. The other part of the efficiency of public expenditure is the targeting of the subsidies. Daniel, I think, talked about the subsidies that are coming when the election, cycle comes, and those subsidies are distorting, if you want, displacing the long-run type of investment, sustainable type of investment on resilient type of product systems that can have long-term positive impact over time. So, enabling the policy environment with good public expenditure in terms of quality and effectiveness is number one that I think we need to focus on. The other point, number two, is the issue of the new solution, I call it new solution, that can make the old ones work, and it's about technology. So we know about the good technology that the CGIAR, the research system, are producing. But there's a new wave of technologies that are now coming up, the issues of the digital technologies. I think we should not forget that. And then finally, the issue of education. I think it's quite important. If we want to be able to really do make a structural transformation in agriculture in Africa, and particularly in Ghana, let's look at the skill development, particularly focusing on technical, managerial, and organizational skills. So for me, those four elements are quite critically important, and we should not ignore them. I want to thank you, and I'm happy to entertain some other questions. Thank you.